There's a kind of strength that rarely gets noticed because it doesn't shout or demand attention. It moves quietly, hidden behind gentle smiles and carefully chosen words. It lives in those who whisper, "I'm fine," while exhaustion lingers in their eyes and the weight of unspoken pain rests on their shoulders. You might have crossed paths with someone like this, or perhaps you've been that person yourself. They're the ones who keep showing up, the steady hands that hold things together for everyone else, even as their own foundation trembles beneath them. They master the art of composure, not out of deceit, but out of necessity. Their calm appearance becomes a shield, a way to protect both themselves and the people around them from the discomfort of raw emotion. In psychology, this tendency is often viewed as a complex coping mechanism, a silent defense against the fear of being seen as weak or needy. These individuals aren't trying to mislead anyone. They're simply trying to survive in a world that often rewards strength and hides from vulnerability. It often begins early in life, somewhere in the quiet corners of childhood. That's when a person first learns that emotions can be dangerous. Maybe when they cried, no one came. Maybe when they reached out, they were told to toughen up. Or perhaps they were punished for expressing pain, reminded that others had it worse, and taught that their own feelings were insignificant. Over time, they learned to adapt. Silence became safer than honesty. Composure became more acceptable than breaking down. Pretending to be fine became the only way to protect their relationships, their stability, and the fragile sense of who they were. It is strange how society praises this kind of strength. We applaud those who hold everything together while quietly unraveling inside. Yet few ever stop to ask what that strength truly costs. Every time someone hides their emotions, they are not only concealing sadness, but also burying pieces of their truth. They begin to split themselves, molding their identity to fit the world's narrow idea of what it means to be okay. Psychologists call this emotional suppression, one of the most common coping strategies among adults. Research shows that many who suppress emotion do so because they have been conditioned to see vulnerability as weakness. But here lies the paradox. The more they suppress, the more disconnected they become, not only from others, but from their own inner world. It forms a quiet loop driven by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of what might happen if the mask slips, even for a second. So they keep smiling. They post cheerful photos, offer polite answers, tell light-hearted jokes. They become so skilled at performing happiness that even they start to believe it. Yet beneath the practiced calm lies a deep exhaustion, not the kind that sleep can fix, but the kind that comes from carrying a self that feels divided. Inside, there is an ongoing tension between authenticity and survival. Their minds turn into a battlefield between who they truly are and who they think they must be. You can often recognize them by the subtle cues, the ones who brush off compliments, the ones who quickly steer conversations away from anything too personal, the ones who dismiss their pain with a soft laugh and a line like, "I'm just tired," or "It's nothing really." Psychologists describe this as emotional masking, the act of showing emotions that society accepts while concealing those that it does not. It is a form of defense that often develops in people who grew up in homes where emotion was unsafe, ignored, or punished. Over time, the mask stops being a choice. It becomes habit, and then identity. Eventually, they no longer realize they are pretending. It becomes a way of being. What often gets overlooked is that these individuals are not weak. They are survivors. Each smile that hides pain, each calm response in the face of chaos, is a learned strategy for navigating a world that rarely welcomes emotional truth. They manage their inner world to keep the outer one from collapsing. If they stay composed, maybe the world around them will stay steady too. But suppression carries a cost. It builds quietly, manifesting in ways that are easy to miss. Research shows that chronic emotional suppression increases stress, weakens the immune system, and contributes to anxiety and depression. Because emotions do not vanish when ignored, they wait. They linger beneath the surface, showing up in restless nights, in the silence after a long day, in moments when the mask slips and everything buried floods back at once. This ongoing struggle often leads to what psychologists call emotional fatigue, a deep and chronic exhaustion that does not come from doing too much, but from feeling too little. It is the exhaustion of maintaining appearances, of controlling every reaction, of avoiding the parts of oneself that feel too painful to face. Yet within this exhaustion lies something important and hopeful. Pretending to be fine is not a permanent condition. It is a defense that can be unlearned, and it begins with something deceptively simple: honesty. Not public confession, but quiet honesty with oneself. The kind that whispers, "I'm not okay," and allows that truth to exist without shame. This small act of acknowledgement interrupts the pattern. It creates space for emotion to move instead of harden. When you allow yourself to feel what you have been avoiding, something changes. The body loosens, the mind softens, and for the first time, there is room to breathe. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist persists. Denying pain does not erase it. It drives it deeper, shaping thoughts and behaviors from the shadows." That is why those who hide behind strength often struggle with deep connection. They crave closeness but fear it at the same time, because closeness requires openness and openness threatens the mask. Many of them find comfort in becoming caretakers. The listeners, the fixers, the ones who hold others together. It feels safe because it keeps attention away from their own wounds. But beneath the calm exterior lies a quiet longing, a desire to be seen not for composure or resilience, but for the fragile humanity they have hidden so long. The soft, uncertain, imperfect parts that make them whole. It is one of life's quiet ironies that the people who seem the strongest often carry the deepest need to be understood. The people who seem the strongest are often the ones who most need gentleness. The ones who never ask for help are the ones who most need it. And the ones who appear perfectly fine are often carrying invisible weights that no one else can see. Yet the world seldom rewards vulnerability. We live in a culture that glorifies productivity over presence, resilience over rest, and appearance over authenticity. We tell people to stay positive, to keep pushing forward, to never quit. But we rarely tell them it is okay to stop, to pause, to admit they are tired, so they keep going until something inside them finally gives way. And when that happens, everyone is surprised. People say, "I had no idea they were struggling." Of course they didn't, because the world only sees what we allow it to see. The truth is that pretending to be okay does not make you stronger. It makes you disappear. And that disappearance is its own kind of quiet suffering. Because how can anyone offer help if they do not know you need it? How can anyone truly understand you if all they ever meet is your mask? There is a quiet kind of courage in admitting that you are not okay. It is not about collapsing or seeking attention. It is about letting yourself be human again. It means no longer fighting your own emotions, no longer silencing what is real just to appear composed. Pretending is exhausting. Being human is liberating. To be real is to stop performing strength and start allowing yourself to simply exist, contradictions and all, with both your beauty and your pain. That is where true strength lives, not in the endless endurance of hiding, but in the quiet decision to stop. Still, authenticity is never easy for those who have spent years perfecting their masks. The first steps toward honesty can feel raw and unfamiliar, like stepping into the cold without protection. Yet, over time, honesty turns into warmth. It becomes comfort, then safety, then home. And perhaps that is what healing truly means. Not chasing perfection or constant positivity, but finding peace in imperfection. The peace that comes when you realize it is okay to not have everything figured out. Because being honest does not make you weak, it makes you free. And in that freedom, something beautiful happens. You stop pretending long enough for others to truly see you. And in that shared recognition, the real process of healing begins. When someone pretends to be okay for too long, they begin to live between two worlds. There is the version they show to everyone else, and the one they silently endure within themselves. At first, the distance between these realities feels manageable, almost like running two programs in the mind, one designed for survival, the other for truth. But as time passes, the divide grows wider, and eventually the line between the two blurs. This is what psychologists describe as emotional dissonance, the inner tension that arises when your outward behavior no longer reflects your inner experience. It is the mental equivalent of smiling while your heart quietly breaks. The longer you live this way, the more detached you become, not because you lack emotion, but because feeling becomes too heavy to carry. There is a strange kind of safety in pretending. It creates the illusion of control. When everything feels uncertain, the mask becomes a form of armor. You can move through chaos without exposing your fear. You can talk about ordinary things while concealing extraordinary pain. Yet every mask comes with a cost. Pretending may protect you in the short term, but over time, it erodes your connection to your own emotions. You stop trusting your feelings. You start doubting your pain. You begin to wonder if something is real simply because no one else can see it, and that is where the danger begins. Suppressed emotions do not fade away. They adapt. They turn into irritability, exhaustion, emptiness, or even physical symptoms. The human body cannot lie. It always tells the truth, even when your words do not. Sometimes that truth appears as chronic fatigue, sometimes as tension in your muscles, a racing mind, or moments of sadness that seem to come from nowhere. It is your body whispering, asking you to stop pretending. Many people who carry this invisible weight begin to lose touch with joy. The things that once brought them light start to feel muted, like distant music beneath water. It is not that they have stopped caring. It is that their emotional energy has been consumed by the effort to maintain composure. From the outside, they still seem capable, dependable, and calm. They are the ones who appear to have it all together. But beneath that calm surface is often someone who is slowly collapsing, piece by piece, in a silence no one else can hear. One of the hardest truths about this pattern is that people who pretend to be okay are often praised for it. They are admired for their strength, for their consistency, for their ability to keep moving forward no matter what. Yet few people realize that what looks like resilience can often be suppression in disguise. This raises an uncomfortable question. Why do so many of us find it easier to pretend than to be honest? The answer lies in social conditioning. From early childhood, we are taught which emotions are welcome and which are not. We are rewarded for being calm, polite, and optimistic. We are dismissed or criticized when we express sadness, anger, or fear, so we adapt. We learn that acceptance often comes with conditions, and we begin to shape ourselves to fit them. Over time, this adaptation becomes instinctive. By the time we reach adulthood, many of us have mastered the art of emotional disguise. What most people fail to see is that every mask we wear distances us from connection, not only with others, but also with ourselves. True connection requires truth, and truth always carries risk. When we have been hurt before, that risk feels unbearable, so we trade authenticity for safety. We smile through pain because it feels predictable. We say, "I'm fine," because it prevents conflict. We suppress rather than express because we believe silence hurts less than rejection. But in doing so, we begin to lose pieces of who we are. There is a saying that captures this paradox perfectly. You can't heal what you hide. The more we conceal, the further we drift from ourselves. Healing does not wait for the perfect moment. It begins the instant you stop pretending. It begins when you stop performing emotional stability to make others comfortable. It begins when you allow yourself to feel, even when no one else understands. Pretending may protect your image, but authenticity protects your soul. When you can finally say, "I'm not okay right now," something shifts. You open a space for compassion, both from others and from yourself. This is not weakness. It is humanity. Psychologically, acknowledging your feelings is an act of integration. It bridges the divide between who you show the world and who you truly are. It allows the performer and the person to coexist. And in that reconciliation, the fragments of yourself begin to come back together, restoring the wholeness that pretending once took away. One of the most freeing realizations a person can have is that honesty and strength are not opposites. They are two sides of the same truth, expressed in different ways. The courage it takes to smile through pain is worthy of admiration, but the courage it takes to admit pain is what truly transforms you. Healing rarely begins with dramatic gestures. It often starts with small acts of honesty. It begins when you answer, "How are you?" with something real, like, "I've been struggling lately, but I'm trying." It begins when you allow yourself to cry without apologizing, when you take a break not because you have earned it, but because you simply need it. Sometimes healing is as simple as refusing to fake a smile when you do not have one to give. There is something profoundly restorative about being real, even when reality feels messy or uncertain. When you stop performing, you make room for life to reach you again. Joy begins to feel authentic instead of staged. Sadness can move through you instead of getting stuck inside. You begin to let others love you for who you are, not for the version of yourself you maintain for their comfort. That is when true connection starts to grow again. The irony is that when you stop pretending to be okay, the right people do not pull away, they come closer. Authenticity has its own gravity. It draws in those who can meet you where you truly are, not where you pretend to be. Many people fear that showing pain will drive others away, but in truth, it often does the opposite. Vulnerability builds trust. It communicates something simple yet powerful: I'm human too. And within that shared humanity, walls begin to soften. Of course, not everyone will understand. Some people are uneasy around emotion because they have spent their own lives avoiding it. That is not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for your truth. Healing does not always announce itself loudly. It is quiet and unassuming. It happens in the moments when you finally let yourself breathe without performing, when you no longer rush to fill silence, when you stop feeling the need to explain your sadness. In those moments, the work of becoming whole begins quietly, beneath the noise of the world, inside the stillness of being honest with yourself. When you stop trying to convince the world that you are fine, something profound begins to unfold. You realize that the people who truly matter never needed your perfection. What they need is your presence. And presence can only exist where authenticity lives. When people finally let go of their masks, they often rediscover parts of themselves they had forgotten. The small details of life begin to glow again. The light in the morning, laughter that feels genuine, art that moves the heart, silence that feels safe. Life regains color, not because everything is fixed, but because it is finally honest. Honesty, even when it hurts, is a kind of freedom. You start to understand that the goal is not to be okay all the time. The goal is to be whole, to be at peace with your contradictions. It takes time and patience, but eventually the habit of pretending begins to fade. In its place grows something far more powerful: self-trust. You begin to trust that your emotions will not destroy you, that sadness will not consume you, that your truth, no matter how heavy, deserves to exist. And the more you trust yourself, the less you feel the need to perform for the world. That is when everything changes. You stop living for appearances and start living in alignment. You stop seeking validation from others and begin to value your own quiet sense of peace. You stop performing happiness and start feeling it, quietly, sincerely, deeply. Maybe this is what the struggle was leading you toward all along, not perfection or constant positivity, but peace. A peace that does not rely on pretending. A peace that makes space for sadness and joy, confusion and clarity, all at once. Because being human was never about maintaining a perfect calm. It was about learning to hold the full range of emotions with acceptance instead of shame. The most beautiful people you will ever meet are the ones who have stopped pretending. They are the ones who have walked through their own darkness and no longer fear it. They have made peace with their imperfections, and that peace shines through them in ways words cannot fully describe. They no longer chase the illusion of being fine. They live in the truth of being enough. So if you are someone who has been pretending to be okay, let this be your quiet reminder. You do not have to anymore. You do not have to carry the world on your shoulders to prove your strength. You do not have to smile just to make others comfortable. You do not have to hide the tender parts of yourself. You are allowed to be honest. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to be real, because being real is what heals. The moment you begin to live as your whole self, not the edited version or the flawless image, you start to attract the kind of peace that pretending could never offer. Maybe the goal was never to be okay. Maybe the goal was to understand that even in your moments of not being okay, you are still worthy of love, of rest, of belonging. Because pretending may protect you from pain, but it also keeps you from joy. And life is far too short to live behind a mask. You do not need to be fine to be whole. You only need to be honest. Because the moment you stop pretending, you stop merely surviving and begin at last to live.